Okay, I want to start with a question for you. Have you ever woken up from a dream that was so real, so vivid, that for just a split second, you weren't totally sure which world you were in? It's a weird feeling, right? But it gets at one of the deepest, most mind-bending questions anyone has ever asked. And this is the guy who asked it. This is the famous butterfly dream paradox from the ancient Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi. The story goes, he had this incredible dream that he was a butterfly, just fluttering around, totally happy, not even aware he was Zhuangzi. And then he woke up, and he was himself again. But then he got stuck. He couldn't be sure. Was he a man who had just dreamed of being a butterfly? Or was he actually a butterfly, right now, dreaming he was a man? This isn't just some late-night philosophical question to toss around. For Zhuangzi, writing over 2,300 years ago, this was the central puzzle of life. And believe it or not, figuring out his answer is the key to unlocking a way of thinking that is shockingly useful for us today, in our own chaotic world. His philosophy was born out of a crisis. So to really get how radical Zhuangzi's ideas were, you first have to understand the world he was pushing back against. See, ancient Chinese thought was basically split between two big competing mindsets. You can think of them as the day world and the night world. On one side, you have the day world. This was the world of Confucianism. It was all about rules, social order, politics, being rational, the serious, practical stuff. But Zhuangzi, he was a master of the night world, which was the world of Taoism. This was the total opposite. It was about imagination, dreams, individual freedom, and connecting with the wild, untamed flow of nature. And here's the crucial part. This wasn't just some abstract debate for him. Zhuangzi lived during something called the Warring States period, which was an absolutely brutal time. The so-called rational order of the Tao world had completely fallen apart. It was total chaos. Warlords were fighting, vassals were killing their lords. It was a mess. So his philosophy wasn't some kind of escape. It was a practical survival guide for a world that had gone completely insane. And one of the biggest problems in any world, but especially a chaotic one, is what do you do about desire? That constant human wanting for more power, more stuff, more everything. It's what drives so much conflict. And Zhuangzi had a totally unique take on this ancient problem. I mean, think about the different approaches out there. In Buddhism, the idea is that desire is the root of all suffering, so the goal is to eliminate it. You've got someone like Freud who argued we have to repress our desires to even function in a society. Or Rousseau, who said, hey, let's just reduce our wants down to the basics. But Zhuangzi, he said something else entirely. He said, transcend it. He wasn't interested in fighting desire or getting rid of it. He wanted to rise above the whole game. So what does that even mean, to transcend reality and desire? I mean, how are you supposed to do that when the world around you feels like it's literally on fire? Well, it really all comes down to perspective. For Zhuangzi, transcendence is about the freedom you get when you pull the camera way, way back. It's about developing the ability to see that all the stuff we fight over, the things we stress about, the things we desperately want, they're usually just a tiny speck in this vast cosmic picture. It's about finding a kind of inner freedom that no one can touch, no matter what's happening on the outside. It's this idea of getting a view from the clouds that really hits home. For people trying to survive the violence of the Warring States period, this way of thinking was a total lifeline. It gave them a kind of resilience, a peace of mind that a warlord couldn't just take away. And honestly, it's just as powerful for us today, whenever we feel overwhelmed and caught up in the weeds of modern life. But Zhuangzi's impact didn't stop in ancient China, not by a long shot. This radical call for freedom and seeing the bigger picture has echoed down through history, and it has popped up in some of the most unbelievable places. I mean, just look at this list of his followers. It's wild. His Taoist ideas about challenging a corrupt reality helped inspire peasant rebellions for centuries. A Japanese physicist, Yukawai Deki, literally credited Zhuangzi for an insight that led to him winning a Nobel Prize in physics. And then there's the blockbuster book from the 70s, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. The wise old mentor in that book is named Shang, which is a direct shout-out to Zhuangzi, and he teaches a young seagull how to transcend the limits of his little world. But here's the most important thing to take away from all of this. To really get Zhuangzi, it's not about memorizing quotes or historical facts. It's about something much, much deeper. The best way to think about it is this. Zhuangzi's philosophy doesn't just give you more information to store in your brain, it actually installs a whole new operating system. It fundamentally changes how you process reality, how you look at problems, and how you even define what freedom is. He doesn't just hand you new answers, he makes you ask completely different questions. So here's the thought I want to leave you with. In our world of constant pressure, endless competition, and just an overload of information, maybe the most radical thing we can do isn't to learn more stuff, but to change the very system we use to see the world. Maybe it's time to stop worrying so much about whether we're the person in the dream and start learning how to fly like the butterfly. All right, let's dive into the wild and wonderful mind of the ancient Chinese sage Zhuangzi. And I have to warn you, his philosophy, it might just flip your entire reality completely upside down. See, Zhuangzi kicks things off with a simple but really unsettling question. What if the very way you see the world, good versus bad, success versus failure, what if those ideas are actually the bars of a cage that you've built for yourself?
So to show us a way out of this cage, Zhuangzi doesn't just give us a dry lecture. Nope. He tells a story, and it all starts deep down in the darkest part of the ocean with this fish named Kun. Now just try to wrap your head around this. We're not talking about a big fish. This creature is unimaginably massive, like a living continent just swimming around in the abyss. Right from the get-go, he's challenging our basic ideas of size and what's even possible. And then something impossible happens. This gigantic fish transforms, bursting out of the water to become a bird named Peng. And right there, that's our first big clue. In Zhuangzi's world, everything is in a constant state of transformation. Nothing is fixed.
The Peng's wings are so huge, they look like clouds hanging in the sky as it just climbs and climbs, riding the wind to a height we can barely even imagine. Now think about it. From up there, what does the world look like? All the little squabbles, the borders between countries, our daily worries, they must all seem incredibly small. So, this whole story about a fish becoming a bird, it's not just some cool fantasy tale. It's Zhuangzi's way of completely shattering our limited perspective from the very beginning. He's showing us that what we think is impossible is usually just a failure of our own imagination. But of course, down on the ground, the smaller creatures, they don't get it. A little cicada and a dove, they just laugh at the Peng. They're like, look at us, we hop from branch to branch, and that's all the flying we need. Why would anyone go to all that trouble? They're judging the entire universe from the limited perspective of their own little branch. And that is the heart of it. What we call reality is almost always just a reflection of our own personal scale. The truth for a small bird is not the same as the truth for the giant Peng. And so often, our judgments about other people are really just a confession of our own limitations. Okay, so if our perspective is limited, what's keeping it that way? Well, Zhuangzi would say it's our obsession with labels. The second we call something good, we automatically create bad. The moment we decide something is useful, we've just created useless. And these labels, well, they become the very bars of our prison. I mean, think about a tree. We see a straight, strong one, and our brain immediately says, oh, that's useful. You could build a house with it, make furniture. Then we see a gnarled, twisted tree, and we just dismiss it as useless. It's a simple, everyday judgment, right? But Zhuangzi tells us to look closer. That useful tree, it gets chopped down. But the useless one, it's left in peace. It gets to live a long, full life, giving shade and shelter to everyone for generations. He completely flips our idea of value on its head. Suddenly, its so-called uselessness is its greatest strength. Or get this story. There's a monkey keeper who tells his monkeys, all right, everyone, you're going to get 3 acorns in the morning and 4 at night. And you know what? The monkeys go absolutely ballistic. They're furious. So the keeper pretends to think for a second, and then he says, okay, my mistake. How about 4 acorns in the morning and 3 at night? And the monkeys were all overjoyed. But think about it. The total number of acorns was exactly the same.
Their entire emotional world, from rage to joy, was totally dependent on a meaningless arrangement. Sound familiar? All of these stories bring us to this huge central idea in his philosophy. It's called Qi Wu Lun. That's Qi Wu Lun, which basically means the equality of all things. It's the wisdom of seeing past our shallow labels, good, bad, useful, useless, and starting to see that everything is just part of one big, interconnected, constantly changing reality. Okay, so if we're supposed to stop judging and labeling everything, what are we supposed to do instead? Well, Zhuangzi's answer is pretty simple. Stop doing so much and start following. Following the natural flow of things, which he calls the Tao. Now, the Tao isn't a goal you have to reach or a bunch of rules you have to memorize. The best way to think of it is like a river. A river isn't trying to get anywhere specific, it's just flowing. It adapts, it finds its own path. It's the natural, spontaneous intelligence of the universe itself. So living this way really means letting go of our desperate grip on specific outcomes. It's all about being responsive to whatever is happening right now, instead of trying to force our own will onto the world. It's about being like water, incredibly powerful yet totally yielding, able to flow around any obstacle without a fight. And when you start to really live like this, following the Tao, letting go of labels, you arrive at this state of deep, profound freedom. And Zhuangzi captures this ultimate feeling of liberation in his most famous story of all. So he has this dream. And in the dream, he wasn't a man thinking about being a butterfly. He was a butterfly. He felt the wind under his wings. He tasted the flowers. He had zero memory of ever being a man named Zhuangzi. He was completely, 100% joyfully a butterfly. And then he woke up. And just like that, he was solid. Undeniably Zhuangzi again, a man lying there. The logical reality, right? Case closed. But then this radical, mind-bending question hits him. How could he be absolutely certain that he wasn't actually a butterfly who was now just dreaming that he was a man named Zhuangzi? Which one was the real reality? Suddenly the line between them completely vanished. And this isn't just a clever riddle. This is the absolute peak of his philosophy. It's a concept called mulhua. That's mu-hua, which means the transformation of all things. It's that moment you realize the boundary between you and the universe, between dream and reality. It's just an illusion. And that, right there, is the ultimate takeaway. True freedom isn't about getting everything you want. It's about realizing that you are not some fixed, static, separate person. You are the fish becoming a bird. You are the man dreaming he's a butterfly. You are a seamless part of the constant, incredible transformation of everything. So Zhuangzi leaves us with a challenge. Not a puzzle to figure out, but a question to live with. What rigid idea about yourself or about the world are you clinging to? What useless tree are you about to dismiss? What label will you let go of today?